Size Me bonus from Sabotage to Success with Laurie. Hello, lovely listeners. All right, as I promised, this week we're going to continue on with our Sabotage to Success. And this week we're going to be talking to Laurie. And in this particular call with Laurie, she really shares with us how the group environment was something that drew her in. She knew the power of being in a small group and the fact that it could be hugely impactful. And she knew about the mind to a degree and what was going on. But being in this intensive and hearing from everybody else really solidified these ideas for her and made it a lot clearer. So I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from Laurie. And again, if this series from Sabotage to Success is really hitting home for you and you're like, hey, what Christy and Charlene and Lily and Laurie are all saying makes perfect sense, I feel like I can really resonate, you can go to halfsizeme.com/success, SUCCESS, and you can sign up there if there's any seats left. If there's no seats left, please put your name and email address in. I am going to run this again at some point, and you will be one of the first to know when it's going to be available. And you will also be the first to get an opportunity to grab a seat. So it's definitely worth putting your name and email address in. All right, without any further ado, let's listen to Laurie share her experience in the 6-week intensive from Sabotage to Success. You have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, lovely listeners. Today we have Miss Laurie on the phone with us. She was very gracious to come on and share with us her experience taking the 6-week intensive from Sabotage to Success. So Laurie, how about you say hi to everybody and then take us back to prior to the intensive and maybe share with us what prompted you to want to join, what was going on for you in your life that you thought maybe this intensive could be helpful for me. Like what was going on that made you decide to join us?
Hi everyone. I felt very stuck.
Mhm.
I've been with HSM for since November of 2022.
Mhm.
And I'd lost 40 pounds, so that was very exciting. And but then it was almost a year that I was really just stuck, and I just really couldn't get my calories down to the deficit they needed to be at.
Mhm.
So that was getting very frustrating. And so when I saw this come up, I went, you know what? This sort of is sabotage what I'm doing because it's what I really want. I want to lose weight, um, and something's stopping me.
Mhm.
And so that's when I signed up.
Okay. So basically realizing you were in some kind of a habitual loop. You don't even maybe know what a habitual loop it was at the time, but you were in some kind of habitual routine that was causing you to be stuck. And knowing that obviously it had to be coming from somewhere, more than likely your mind, you thought, okay, maybe learning more about this would be helpful for me.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
it. Okay.
definitely.
And so for you, what kind of were the inklings of what you thought might be the issue? Because you had mentioned, I think, in one of our things about something about cake and ice cream and how you can feel like there was like maybe a little bit of like resentment about letting something go, but yet contending with a voice in your head that's telling you what you have to do. So when you look back, what were maybe some of the ways the voice was kind of interfering with what needed to be done?
It was sort of strange because it wasn't the typical mind voice where it's like, "Oh, you should have cake and ice cream," which I've had before, but it was almost more like insidious, where it was in the background, but I wasn't. It was just like, "You're having cake and ice cream tonight." And there wasn't even a mental discussion about it. It was just, "This is what we're doing, and that's the end of it." So that's where I think I felt stuck,
Mhm.
where I felt like I couldn't change that behavior.
Mhm.
And and then through the class, I was able to really go, I'm just telling myself that I can't do this. It's not real
Mhm.
that I can't do this. It's just like you said, habitual thinking that's like, "Oh, no, you have to have cake and ice cream," because I had done it for so long.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing we don't realize sometimes because we talked a lot in the intensive about stories, right? How we create these stories and then they almost take on like a life of their own, right? Like the story I can't not have the ice cream and the cake, right? That could become a repetitive story that we just buy into wholesale and we don't ever even question it. Was that a little bit clearer to you being in the intensive and maybe getting to hear from other participants and some of their stories that they were repeating or had felt were true without questioning them? Was that helpful for you?
Oh, absolutely. It really on both ends of things, being able to see that more clearly, that it was like, this is just a story. That's all it is. If I don't have cake and ice cream, or if I have half the cake and ice cream I normally do, I am not gonna die,
Mhm.
and then with regard to hearing other people's stories, that is just, I think, always really helpful, because sometimes you can feel really alone and like, what is my problem that I can't do this? And that's also just not true. There are a lot of people who struggle with the same thing.
100%. And in the intensive, one of the things I was really surprised and actually happy to see was there was a lot of conversations about relationships. Like, we had one lady in particular who her husband brings her candy or pretzels, and she had a story, right, that he was doing this and kind of sabotaging her and all this. And then we had another lady who was wanting to have ice cream impulsively and how her husband responded. It created a rift between the two of them. And I don't think a lot of times we realize too, sometimes these stories that we might have about cake and ice cream and other things, we also can sometimes have them in relationships. Was that something you were already aware of and had started to work on for yourself, or was that something that seemed newer to you as well?
Um, the relationship part, I've worked on that for a very long time. So I don't know if in my personal relationships I necessarily felt that quite as much. Um, Although I will say I have really begun to put a lot of emphasis on what I need in a relationship, and being able to say no. It
Mhm.
actually just happened with someone where I already had too much on my plate, and I was like, I really wanted to get together with this person, but I I was like, I know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna get so stressed out, and that could activate, wanting to binge or overeat, or whatever it might be, or even just a not great mental state.
Mhm.
So I'm really finding myself saying no, really asking myself what I need.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like how you said that because I had another participant I did a interview with about this, and she said the exact same thing. She said that she's always heard that voice and wanted to be a people pleaser and wanted to say yes to everything and do everything, but she realized it always came at a cost to herself. And then that usually does for many people ripple out into eating because you're stressed, you have less time, you might feel put upon depending on what you're doing. And so that often can really ripple into eating behaviors as well. Did you ever see that be true for you?
I would say yes in a very subtle way, because I think for me and I'm guessing for other people too, it gets stacked. So
Mhm.
like I have that thing happen, and then maybe I have a stressful situation at work happen, and then maybe one other thing happens, and then I'm ordering a pizza.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought up work because I remember that being one of the things that seemed to be part of this whole "I'm just gonna have the pizza," right? "I'm just gonna have the thing," was a
Mhm.
stressful time at work. And how did that start to maybe look a little bit different to you as you were progressing through the 6-week intensive, the situation of the stress at work, and how it kind of maybe seemingly came out of nowhere, but yet it does seem to happen fairly, frequently. How did
Mhm.
you see that a little differently?
Yeah, it was happening way more frequently than I even thought because after we spoke the one time, I went back into my Fitness Pal and looked at previous weeks, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." Because, it was like my overall calories when I would look at them, they were pretty good. But then there'd always be a day, maybe 2 days, where it just messed up that whole average. So that you were bringing up that, it can take even like I think you said 4 to 6
Mhm,
weeks for the body to kind of really acclimate to this lower calorie deficit. And if you do have a binge or overeating, depending how many calories it is,
mhm,
it could really affect what's going on.
mhm.
So so I don't mean to segue from the question, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's all part of it. And so what I started to do is I went, okay, because you're always bringing up like, what's an alternative to like, my go-to is kind of ordering the pizza.
Mhm.
So, okay. So I found a really good frozen pizza um,
Mm.
that's actually pretty good on calories. The whole pizza is, I think, 700 calories, so it's pretty good,
Mhm.
fairly healthy, and, it happened the other day,
Awesome.
and I was pretty like, "I'm ordering a pizza," and then what I did was I really thought about, "Okay, hang on a second. You've got the
Yes.
pizza in the freezer, and how are you gonna feel after you eat that pizza if you do order it?" And I
Mhm.
know, like, it's not my body does not love it. I kinda feel sick to my stomach, and so it's not good. So I had the frozen pizza. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was delicious. It, like, gave me everything I needed.
Mhm. I so love this, and there's several things in here I wanna highlight because I think a lot of times people feel once they become aware of the voice, first off, they should just stop the behavior wholeheartedly. Like, okay, I know what's going on. There's no hiding it. Now I'm aware. Now I'm just going to do this behavior. I'm going to have all this stress at work and I'm just going to say, no, I'm not doing the pizza. And then they get really frustrated when they still do the pizza, right? And what we have to remember is that this could be something you have repeated, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, depending on your lifespan and how often this behavior occurs. You're not just the fact that you had that awareness in the moment to say, "Oh, wait, this is the thing again. And I do have the frozen pizza and I could make that better choice." That is the change because every time you create space between the stimulus and the response and allow a new opportunity to show up, you start to create new habits. So if for maybe the next 6 months to a year, every time you feel stressed, you eat the frozen pizza and the calories are more controlled, you're moving in the right direction, right? But we often really kind of beat ourselves up and say, "Well, now that I know this thing, I shouldn't do it anymore." We aren't really being very, kind or gracious with ourselves or even realistic. How do you see that for yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that is one of the things that happened. I think it was last week that this happened, and I felt so, good about myself rather than feeling like, "Oh my god, I did it again. I ordered the pizza." It's like, yeah, just that feeling of I think one of the I could list so many things that you've done for me, but one main thing is really seeing those alternatives, like I mentioned,
Mhm,
having not doing the extreme, like, oh, I'm not going to do this behavior because it's not realistic.
mhm,
There's just no way that's going to happen. And I know that. So being able to kind of meet myself where I am, I
mhm.
think I think that's the thing. And that feels so good. You know,
Mhm.
I'm very into self-compassion and really taking care of myself, and I want that. It makes me feel good instead
Oh,
of letting my mind just, like, take over and
mhm.
control every situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the hard things that I felt during the, 6-week intensive was I saw a few people say, is it too much to ask that this voice just leaves me alone or stops saying these things to me?" And the truth is, it's kind of like asking the sky not to be blue. It's always gonna be blue. Like, clouds can get in the way, and maybe it can have a slightly different hue, but it's always gonna be a blue sky. That mind is always going to talk to you about habits and behaviors and try to get you back into your habits. Like, that's all it knows to do. And it's hard because a lot of times we don't want to really accept that. And when we won't accept it, we keep thinking, okay, this should change. This should get easier. This voice should stop talking to me. It's actually like you're making it even harder on yourself. In this, like for yourself, how did you slowly start to accept that this voice is gonna just keep saying, "Let's order pizza"? Like, how did that work for you?
Um, I would say one of the biggest things was the preparation. You know, after I can't remember which class it was, that's when I started going, okay, so I've got to have some alternatives to these things because it's not just going to be, oh, I'm not going to have any dessert after dinner.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So, what I did was I started to look up healthier recipes for desserts, and wow, there's a lot out there. And I love to cook, so that's, I feel very lucky that I love to cook.
Mhm.
And so I started doing these. I made these dates with sauteed pecans inside, and then in chocolate sauce that I made with date sugar instead of regular sugar. So there was no actual sugar in them except the dates.
Mhm.
And oh my gosh, they were so delicious. They tasted like a chocolate turtle, and it like gives me that, what's the word? Is satiation a word?
Yeah.
um yeah, like it felt good. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I still have cake and ice cream, but then someone in the community actually brought up something called nice cream, which I had never heard of, made with bananas, like super healthy. So
Mhm.
I made that. So I've been having that quite a bit.
I love this. So what it sounds like for you is acceptance was tied into, okay, so like I'm going to fully accept this part of my mind's never going to shut up. It's going to always say get pizza. I've accepted that. So now I'm actually gonna do the research and the legwork to find a better alternative for the pizza. I'm gonna find a better alternative for the ice cream because I get that this really isn't going anywhere. And maybe what you're saying is that when you're not in that acceptance phase, like you're not willing to accept that this, like it's not just a knowledge issue. Like, okay, I hear that I have this going on. I see that this is happening. Now I just want it to go away, or I just want it to stop, or I just want myself to stop. When you finally accept, nope, this is gonna keep drudging on. I'm gonna keep responding the same way. So now I gotta have a different outlet for that decision that's a better step in the right direction. Then you do the legwork to actually start to pull all that together. Is that maybe how you might see it differently now?
Yeah, perfectly said.
Love that. Yeah, and I was always thinking about that because it's like when I finally accepted that I was gonna do certain behaviors and that it was like an immediate, then what am I gonna do instead? Like it's that immediate, what actions will I now take? And that was one thing I loved about the intensive. One in particular person comes to mind. She would come every week with a real life scenario where she would be like, okay, I was driving to the doctor today and on the way back, I always stop and get cookies, or it's a sweaty hot day and I just wanted to get ice cream. What do I do instead? She would come with a lower brain driven thing that showed up for her, but then she would want us to talk it through and actually say, well, in this situation, when this happens again, what could I do differently? And I felt that was hugely helpful, because it's not just us addressing the brain concept, but it's then actually finding real world application. Was part of that helpful for you in doing that for yourself?
Oh, yeah. To really look at these habits, it's just so crazy what our minds do. It's like it latches on to this habit, and then it starts to convince you that you have to do it every time. I have a similar situation where when I go see my therapist, I have
Mhm.
to go to Starbucks. And so I started sort of bucking that, and I would bring food
Mhm.
instead. Or maybe I would get the coffee, or maybe I'd make my own coffee at home and put
Mhm.
it in a to-go cup, you know? So yeah, that idea of just really seeing the habitual patterns with food, and how they're connected to other things too.
Mhm.
Like, "Oh, I do this, so I need to get this when I
Mhm.
do this." Yeah, it's sort of fascinating actually
Well,
too.
and you would be able to resonate with this based on your personal, expertise, but it's self-compassion. Self-compassion is saying, "Okay, I see I do this thing. Yes, I don't love it." But as opposed to being hard on myself and saying, "Now that I'm aware of the brain chatter, now that I see that this happens on a routine basis, I should just stop this cold turkey. I should snap myself and make it happen." Whereas what I think you're saying, and what hopefully so many people are leaning into, is more of a self-compassion road, which is, I do see I struggle with this. I do see this voice is not going to go away and stop recommending pizza, and not stop recommending Starbucks. But what I'm going to start to do is kind of give myself a crutch to move from where I'm at now to closer to where I want to be. And would you say, based on your experience of self-compassion, that sometimes that could be the difference between the two?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and and I can feel the difference because it feels like I'm actually taking care of myself, instead of just satisfying this very temporary urge that in the long run is actually gonna make my body feel not great, probably my mental state won't be that great, and so it's like, "Oh, I'm having this alternative. It's actually really delicious." Like, there's it's all in my mind. I'm so sorry about my throat.
That's okay.
Um, it's all in my mind that I have to have this other thing,
Mhm.
and so being able to go to a much healthier version, yeah, I mean, it makes me feel so good about myself. It makes me feel like I'm truly taking care of myself.
100%. And one thing I was curious about, so with this intensive, I heard a lot of people say this to me, and I thought it seemed to show up over and over again, where people would say, I really wasn't going to sign up for this intensive because I've already heard you talk all about the brain stuff. I already know about it. I've watched all the videos. I'm just not doing it, or they're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable sharing, so I don't want to do that, or maybe it could have been price related. As you came up on signing up for it, what points of resistance did you have? And now, having gone through it, how do you see that differently?
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say I had a ton of resistance, though I do know what you mean, because there was a little of me going, well, I could just listen to another podcast, um, but I know I've done different things in groups, and I know the power of the group atmosphere, and feeling that, like, common humanity from the group, that we're all so similar, and that can be so incredibly powerful. And then also the opportunity to talk with you. I mean, my experience was anytime I wanted to ask you a question, I was able to do that
Hmm.
in the class. So it wasn't like I was a little bit concerned about that. I thought, oh, how many people are there going to be? And will
Hmm.
there be enough time for me to get my question in? But there really was. It felt very spacious and open, and you were so accommodating to everyone, making sure everyone got a chance to speak. So the resistance, I'd say, was minimal, but it was there a little bit.
Hmm.
And I think it wasn't there partly because I did feel stuck. And I
Hmm.
kind of went, okay, that's great. You think but it's not working.
Right.
So, what are we gonna do here?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did it. I mean, because it really just I don't know, being in that group atmosphere, having you there, hearing these things, even though, yes, okay, you hear some of it before, it hit me in a different way. I think that happens too. Like when you're ready to hear it a little more deeply, then it can really change behaviors, which
Yeah.
is what
100%.
for me.
Yeah, and that's why it was really important to me to introduce you to so many of the teachers that have helped me because first off, there were certain teachers that I had stumbled across years ago that I exposed you guys to that when I first heard it didn't make a lick of sense to me. Not I didn't understand a word they were saying, right? But then years of studying, I finally would go back to them and I'm like, "Oh, I get this now." Like I couldn't hear what they were really saying before because my mind had a lot of judgment and was saying, "Okay, you know this stuff or you know this and this doesn't make sense with what you've already learned." And so I would kind of like tune it out and I not really understand and then I come back and I get it, right? And that's why I wanted you guys to have a nice eclectic mix because I figured some of them would resonate more so than others. And as time progresses, that might change for you guys. So as you were taking in all the lessons, was there any of the teachers that kind of helped you maybe have like an aha moment or seem to gel with you a little bit better?
Oh, let me think. Yes, there was a woman, and I'm sorry to say I don't remember her name. Um, Grace?
Oh,
Was she
yeah,
taught
Grace
by
Bell.
Grace?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I really liked what she had to say. It kind of goes along with my personal philosophy anyway,
Mhm.
and I think again, like, you can hear something and go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I know that." But it doesn't go into your body where you really understand it.
Yeah.
Whereas this time, and this is sort of what has happened with all of your teachings for me over the past 3 years, honestly, is it go like when I need to hear it and I feel ready to hear it, then I hear it in the way that I need to. And that's what happened with her too. It was like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you kind of know this logically, but for me, I have to almost like feel it in my heart that because that's where I'm really going to take action to really take care of myself and
Yes.
honor what I really want.
Yes. I just did an interview with one of our academy members. She just recently became a maintainer and she basically has a really interesting perspective on wanting to have her people the people that she connects with around her and she sees that actually as being one of the most valuable things to having her lose the weight and keep it off is the people. And that's interesting because so many people contend with that lower brain chatter of I should be able to do this on my own. This is simple. I should be able to figure this out on my own. Like they very much want to distance themselves from a group environment. And one of the things she said was spot on. And it really ties in with what you just said. She said, I had learned a long time ago that learning something and living it were two different things. Like I could learn information, I could read a book and learn information, but I actually needed to have the time to live it for it to really resonate. And so the difference between learning and living, and what I hear from you is you can hear information, but until, like you said, it settles into your heart and you have this more of an emotional impact inside, it doesn't really like cement in as well. Is that kind of what you mean by that?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I really have to feel it, or it's like on the surface and I'm like, "Oh yeah." Then the shoulding starts. "Oh yeah, I should do that." And that for me never works. I mean, it's really maybe it'll work for a couple weeks, but that's about it. And so with this, it was more like, "No, I really want to do this and I've got to I want to honor myself. I want to do these things. And I feel like that's the difference. Just going along with what you just said.
Yeah, and as I listen to you share even in this this interview is that the shoulding thoughts, which are almost always lower brain driven, because what is that about? It's about you in a way trying to accomplish something, do something to validate, right? To say I'm an okay person, and at the end of the day that is a survival mechanism as well. So the shoulding, and then also the people pleasing element of you that might overextend yourself and find that, like you said, it could stack up through the week, right? So if you're shooting on yourself in your head and then you're trying to please other people and you're overextending yourself, it's kind of becomes super clear like how all of that could eventually lead to the stress that would lead to the pizza.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So out of this whole 6-week intensive, all the people you experienced, all the things you did, what would you feel like if somebody were contemplating starting, joining, they were thinking about it, but either they were like, "Okay, I don't know if I wanna, talk in front of people. I don't know if this is really for me," or maybe if, like, "Okay, if I commit the money and then I'm afraid I might not follow through," or whatever. What would you say to somebody who is kind of maybe at that decision period where they're trying to decide whether to join or not?
You know, what would I say? I think what I would say is if you're at the place where you are feeling stuck, you're needing more support, you're needing that idea of people around you, even if LB is saying otherwise, that oh, you don't need these people, um, to really challenge any of those thoughts because it the group I think is so powerful, and I think it was worth every penny, and certainly you could pay the money and not do it. I mean, we all could do those behaviors, but again, that feels like the lower brain trying to convince you that this isn't going to work or I can't do this, and that's just like yet another story. So if you can get past that, I would really encourage anyone to do it.
I love that, and that's one of the things that's why I started the whole session out with the orientation where I said, "Your mind is gonna tell you constantly you're not doing enough, you haven't watched enough material, you haven't wrote enough blog posts." Like, your mind is gonna keep telling you that you're missing something, you should be doing more, right? That's just what it does. Like, it'd be great if there was an off switch, there isn't, but that's what it does. And when we had that conversation at the beginning, I saw a lot of people like do one of these numbers like, okay, because they were already in that mindset. Like, okay, what do I got to do? What's the next assignment? What's got to be turned in? And I'm like, as long as you're here, like somewhat taking in this information, listening to some of it, paying attention, you're going to get what you kind of going back to what you said, you're going to get what you need right now. And is there more that you could learn over time? Sure. You could probably revisit this material every month and you'll learn something new, but is it generally like you're going to pick up something and it's going to benefit you? Yes. And but our mind makes it feel like if we miss one thing, one assignment, one post, one thing, we failed, right? And we got to start to push past that limiting story that keeps us so stuck.
Yeah. And I thought of something as you were saying this, long ago, it was that all or none, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think most of us, if we're here, we in this community, we probably understand that. Um, and another just major thing I learned from you is to focus on these little habits, just
Mm-hmm.
a little at a time. And it is just crazy to me how many accumulated habits I have now over this past 3 years. So it's like if you take it in these little pieces and not get caught up in, "Oh, I gotta lose 50 pounds, like, tomorrow,"
Mm-hmm.
then it's first of all, it's so much easier. It's so
Yeah.
much easier on ourselves, and it feels permanent. I always have you in my head, don't do anything you can't do long term. Like, that is one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that really stuck with me, and that I have found changes over time. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you asked me 3 years ago what I
Yes.
couldn't do without resentment, it would be different than today.
I would kiss you right now if I could. Because you got no, that's it. When people hear that, so here's how the mind screws with you. Okay, ready for this? When you hear me say that, you're assuming that everything the way you think right now is how you're going to think in 3 and 5 years. And you can't imagine the future you who is in a totally different place. She's got all these low-hanging fruits done. She's actually in a much better place and she can do different things than you are willing to do right now. And because people sometimes hear that and because they're believing their mind, they go, well, I'm never going to want to eat less than Twinkies a day, or I'm never going to want to eat less than 4 times pizza out every week. I'm stuck. No, no, no. That's what you right now are willing to do. Cut to 5 years later, and you are in a totally different place because you've already improved some habits. And that's the thing you have to realize, the mind and the stories and everything changes as time wears on. You have new experiences, you learn new lessons. You're not the same person you were on day one. That is a different version of you, and you can't see it through her eyes or his eyes until you're there. And that's hard because we want to know all the answers right now, and you can't know all the answers right now. You can only know the next step you have to take right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that was a good one. I so appreciate you saying that because I've had this conversation with so many people with like, but I'm never gonna want to do. I'm like, no, 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 that's you now. That's not you then. Like you don't know you then. You have to let her become the thing, you know? Let her show up and let's talk to her in 3 years. Because how many times does that happen? People will come on, they're at their goal. Wait, I never could have imagined I would have done. Yeah, it's like because that in that moment in time, that wasn't part of your understanding. That wasn't what you could see for yourself. Now
Mhm.
it looks totally different.
Totally different.
It's awesome.
Totally different. Yes.
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 So I have loved talking to you. I loved having you in the intensive. You always raised your hand and asked really good questions and participated, and I was so grateful for that. For those people listening today, is there any parting words that you would want to share before we wrap up?
Well, what's coming to me is a friend of mine in the community. It's maybe I think she'll be okay with me giving her credit and saying, we always say, keep swimming.
Oh, yes, keep swimming. Yes.
So I love that. It's like, just keep doing it a little at a time and don't be too hard on yourself, just make those little changes. And oh, I am blown away at how those little changes impact how we live just in
Mhm.
general over time and of course specifically with food.
Yeah.
But it's so impactful. So yeah,
Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and wisdom with us. I really appreciate it.
thank you, Heather.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to visit halfsizeme.com. Check back often for your daily dose of inspiration because you are worth it.
The information you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The host is not a medical professional. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.